Good afternoon. I'm going to call our regular council meeting of Tuesday, May 9th to order. And before we move into the agenda, I just want to say a few words on behalf of council and all Leduc County residents. We'd like to say thank you to Leduc County Fire Services. Thank you for your courage, strength, resilience as you work to protect homes and properties here in Leduc County. We are all now hoping that this damp weather will continue and help mitigate the fire risk. But to all of our residents, please, please follow our fire bans. We all have that part to play in keeping ourselves, our families, our neighbors, and our firefighters safe. So on behalf of council, a really big thank you for all of you. And with that, we'll move on to the agenda. Mr. Coleman, the agenda is before us. Do we have any additions or deletions?
Nothing from administration, Madam Chair.
Someone move as presented. Councillor Scobie, thank you very much. All in favor? That's unanimous. On to minutes of April 25th, 2023. Looking for someone to move those. Councillor Lewis, thank you. Any debate, discussion, errors or omissions? I am seeing none. All in favor? That is unanimous. At the beginning of every meeting at 1:30, we put aside an opportunity for anyone who would like to present to Leduc County on an item that's not on the agenda can do so now. I'm going to call a second time. All the faces look familiar back there. Third time. All right, with that, we will move on to 5A1, which is park officer appointments. Mr. Honesty, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. This is an annual process of council approving park officers to work for us for the season and enforce our parks bylaw. The names before you have started last week and are now preparing for opening on May long weekend, and primarily will enforce Jubilee Campground, but we'll also support across the region as required for enforcement purposes. So as per the bylaw, it requires council to appoint them as per the bylaw.
Okay. Any questions on the report? Seeing none, look for someone to move the recommendation. Councillor Verdi will, and if you could just read it into the record, please. Thank you.
I recommend we name the following staff as Leduc County Park Officers for the duration of their employment. Neil Unland, Braden Heckbert, Allison Shapka, Emma Dufall, Callie Hansen, and Pamela Billy.
Thank you. Any more comments, questions, debate? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. And just before you go, from a parks perspective, we are on full fire ban, correct? So there are no open fires, even if you get into Leduc, into any of our campgrounds. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, and we'll report regularly with fire services as we approach May long weekend. But then that's why we have our officers to make sure that those rules are followed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to 5A2, appointment of seasonal club route and weed inspectors. Mr. Van Beers is in his chair and ready to go whenever you are ready, sir.
Thank you and good afternoon. Similar to the parks, we are looking for an appointment of our seasonal club route and weed inspectors for the year. This is something that we have to do annually. The appointment of the weed inspectors is under the Weed Control Act, and what that Weed Control Act allows our inspectors to do is enter onto private property at any reasonable time to do the inspections for the potential noxious or prohibited noxious weeds. And in a similar fashion, the club route inspector is appointed as a pest inspector under the Agricultural Pest Act. So in a similar fashion, they can enter the property at any reasonable time to do inspections for club route of canola. So the background gives you the reasoning why we have these appointments done, and these are done annually because they are seasonal. So it is for the duration of their employment with Leduc County.
Thank you. And there's just one club route inspector, is that correct?
That is correct. However, we are looking to appoint the 3 weed inspectors as pest inspectors in the event that we require additional help. That way we have a little few extra hands that are properly appointed and can assist with that.
And just remind me, Mr. Van Beers, is it a wet year when we have more club route or a dry year? I can't really.
Usually wet is a bigger club route year.
It's hard to know what to hope for. Now, isn't it?
Just enough
Okay,
enough rain.
like a Goldilocks.
Yes, exactly.
Councillor Smith, the floor is yours.
I would like to move the recommendation that Leduc County Council appoint the following seasonal employees as Leduc County inspectors for the duration of their employment. Number one, Lana Belinsky, Club Route Inspector in accordance with the Province of Alberta Agricultural Pest Act. Number two, Garth Penn, Weed Inspector in accordance with the Province of Alberta Weed Control Act and Inspector in accordance with the Province of Alberta Agricultural Pest Act. Jeanette Willisco, Weed Inspector in accordance with the Province of Alberta Weed Control Act and Inspector in accordance with the Province of Alberta Agricultural Pest Act, and Grace Zederi, Weed Inspector in accordance with the Province of Alberta Weed Control Act and Inspector in accordance with the Province of Alberta Agricultural Pest Act.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. We really appreciate your radio announcer voice. Just a reminder again, Mr. Van Beers, do the weed inspectors need permission to enter onto private land?
So they do not need permission to enter onto private land. However, they are not permitted to enter into a residence. So it is just for the inspection of the outside property.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Balazer.
Yeah, Dean, just before we call the questions, Aaron, is any of these returning from last year?
Yes, Garth Penn and Jeanette Willisco are both returning. Our club route inspector, Milena Belinsky, is new, as is Gracie Zederi.
So follow up to that, then they come with training, or do we have to train?
So as a matter of fact, Ms. Zederi was a weed inspector in a different municipality for the past couple of years. And we've just been fortunate enough to pick her up. So we are still doing our training to do it in the process and the procedure that Leduc County does, but she comes with a wealth of knowledge already. So we're quite fortunate to have her.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, I am seeing no other hands up for questions or debate, so I will call the question. All in favor? That is unanimous. Good luck with your new crew this year.
Thank you very much.
On to 5B1, which is a proclamation. Mr. Broadbent.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, thank you. Accompanying me up here is Candida Pettigrew. Candida is one of our outstanding administrative assistants with our road operations and engineering department, and has been hugely supporting the work associated to the Public Works Week proclamation and recognition of Public Works Week. So recommendation before you, Madam Mayor, is that Council proclaims the week of May 21st to May 27th, 2023 as National Public Works Week in Leduc County, Alberta. As you know, since 1960, National Public Works Week has been celebrated across North America by more than 30,000 members of the American Public Works Association and the Canadian Public Works Association. We use this week to energize and educate the public on the importance of public works to the daily lives, planning, building, managing, and operating at the heart of their local communities to improve everyday quality of life. The 63rd Annual Public Works Week, sponsored by the Canadian Public Works Association, this year is May 21st through to 27th, 2023. Leduc County would like to recognize the dedicated efforts of our public works professionals, the road operations crews, our engineers, utility technicians, and managers and employees at all levels of government and the private sector. They are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting the transportation systems, the water supply and treatment and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. So with that, Madam Mayor, I'm looking for a proclamation of National Public Works Week.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking for someone to make a recommendation. Councillor Scobie.
Week of May 21st to 27th, 2023 as National Public Works Week in the County of Alberta.
Okay, thank you very much. And a really big shout out to Candida and your staff. I actually look forward to Public Works Week. You have interesting events and you have a way of bringing people together, which didn't happen when I first started here 10 years ago. So congratulations for pretty much creating something out of nothing and making it something that we look forward to. With that, any other comments or questions? I will call the question. All in favor? It's unanimous. And shall I read the proclamation into the record? So, whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital to sustainable and resilient communities and to public health, high quality of life and well-being of Leduc County residents, and whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated effort of public work professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Leduc County, Alberta to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest in the understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And therefore, on behalf of council, I, Mayor Tanny DeBlanco of Leduc County, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st to 27th, 2023 to be National Public Works Week in Leduc County. Look forward to it. Thank you. But wait, there's more. No, you guys come forward. On to 5B2, which is a proclamation for Economic Development Week, May 8th to 12th.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. Maureen Easton is not available today, so I would like to present Brianna Kumpala-Young, our Economic Development Coordinator, to make this presentation today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today's recommendation is with regard to proclaiming this week that we're in right now as Economic Development Week. Therefore, it's administration's recommendation that Leduc County Council proclaim the week of May 8th to 12th, 2023 as Economic Development Week as requested by our department. Economic development contributes to our quality of life through local jobs, infrastructure, and creating a place where residents can thrive. Council and administration work together towards this goal to ensure our businesses of all sizes are part of a thriving business ecosystem. Council's leadership in this new portfolio and pursuing economic development opportunities is not going unnoticed. You have taken a leadership role in supporting innovative ways of doing business. The enclosed graphics are provided by the economic developers of Alberta and are supported by the Alberta municipalities and rural municipalities of Alberta.
Thank you very much. So an opportunity to shine a light on economic development here in the county. All right. Any questions or someone to make a motion? Councillor Lewis?
No question, but I'd be happy to make the motion that Leduc County Council proclaim the week of May 8th to 12th, 2023 as Economic Development Week as requested by Leduc County Economic Development Department.
Thank you very much. Any more comments or questions? I appreciate your comments about providing leadership when it comes to economic development. We continue to work hard and are working smarter now in Leduc County, I believe, about being ready for investment. And thank you to our department for providing that leadership. And we continue to support strong economic development opportunities here in the county. So with that, I will call the question. All in favor? Unanimous. And then I will read the proclamation. Economic Development Week. Whereas economic developers attract and retain high quality jobs, develop vibrant communities, and improve the quality of life in their regions. And whereas communities rely on economic development professionals to promote economic well-being, coordinate activities that create, retain, and expand jobs in order to facilitate growth, enhance wealth, and provide a stable tax base. And whereas economic developers work in the community of Leduc County within the province of Alberta, Now therefore, on behalf of council, I, Mayor Tanya DeBlanco of Leduc County, do hereby proclaim the week of May 8th to 12th, 2023 to be Economic Development Week in Leduc County. Thank you. We wish you well. Okay. Oh, we are right at 1:45. Ms. Gavin, that's a perfectly timed agenda. So we have a public hearing at 1:45. So I will now call our public hearing to order. Council is here to listen to the information presented and make a decision on the matter that is the subject of this hearing, which is the removal of a municipal reserve designation, Plan 0124826, Block 2, Lot 6 MR. This is a formal hearing and not a debate. Everyone wishing to speak who has pre-registered will be given an opportunity to speak once on the matter as called on by myself, the chair. Each presenter must state his or her full name, address, and their interest in their matter, whether in support or non-support. Individuals who do not identify themselves will not be given an opportunity to speak. Presenters are encouraged to stay within the 5-minute time limit on their presentation and are encouraged when speaking to keep the presentation to the point and refrain from restating points raised by previous speakers if possible. If new presentation materials are provided, you may be required to email a copy to the legislative coordinator. I will now ask Ms. Bernan, the Manager of Assessment Services, to introduce the subject of the hearing. The floor is yours, Ms. Bernan.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor DeBlanco, Council Administration. Report is a public hearing for the removal of the municipal reserve designation as indicated. As per section 675 of the Act, Council directs that the county manager notify the registrar that the provisions of Part 17, Division 9 of the Act have been complied with and request the registrar to remove the designation of the municipal reserve from county property legally described as Plan 0124826 Block 2, Lot 6 MR containing 7.39 acres. Maybe if we can go to the map on the next page. Thank you. So just an indication of the ad and the area that we're talking about. So the removal of the reserve designation would allow for the subsequent sale of a portion, the 4.13 acres plus or minus of the property as diagrammed. So the rectangular property will be left. On March 14th, 2023, Council directed administration to advertise to remove the municipal reserve designation from the plan. As per 606 and 674 of the Act, a notice of public hearing was published at least once per week for 2 consecutive weeks in the Leduc Rep on April 21st and the 28th. Notification letters were mailed to adjacent landowners on April 18th. A sign was posted on the property indicating the intent to remove the municipal reserve designation, and the notice of public hearing was posted on the Leduc County website on April 21st, 23. At the time of the writing of this report, no submissions, requests to speak, or calls of concern have been received.
Thank you very much. And just to County Manager, have we received anything since that time?
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have not. Any questions for Ms. Bernand? No, I see no questions. We have no registered speakers. Is there anyone in the chambers today who would like to speak to this matter? Anyone wishing to speak to this matter? Anyone wishing to speak at the public hearing? This is the last call. There is no one. So with that, I don't imagine you have any final comments. Do you, Ms. Bernand?
No, the recommendation is before you.
Thank you very much. With that, I will close the public hearing at 1:49. And I will open the floor up for debate on the matter with council. Councillor Smith.
I'll just make a comment. This land would probably end up being used in a development purpose in the Nisku area, again, increasing our assessment base as well as promoting development and employment. So I would be in favor of the recommendation if it is so put forward today.
Thank you. I will actually make the recommendation. I will make the recommendation as per section 6751 of the Municipal Government Act. Council direct county manager to notify the register that the provisions of Part 17, Division 9 of the MGA have been compiled and requests the register to remove the designation of municipal reserve from county property legally described as Plan 0124-826, Block 2, Lot 6, MR, containing 7.39 acres. Thank you. The motion is on the floor. Any further comments or questions or debate from council? I am seeing no hands up, so I will call the question. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much, Ms. Bernand. And I don't remember any of those parts of the MGA from my training, so I will have to, yes. All right, on to 7A1, which is land sale of Leduc County property, Plan 578, CL Block 2, Lot 19, Roll 660-2001. The floor is yours, Ms. Bernand.
Thank you, Mayor DeBlanco. So the recommendation before you is that council approve the disposal of Plan 578 CL Block 2, Lot 19, located at 5059 Center Avenue for the market value sum of $45,000 plus GST by means of a private party negotiated sale, the proceeds of which shall be allocated to the Capital Asset Lifecycle Management Land Management Reserve. Under implications, the reason is the interested purchaser wishes to develop the property with a commercial building with a business venture which would utilize the property to its highest and best use. The commercial development would be a benefit to the community of New Sarepta. There is some significant background on this property. In 2014, council approved the disposal of the old village office building and this vacant parcel, as Leduc County did not require the property and it was considered to be excess land suitable for disposal. In 2016, a real estate agent was retained to market these properties, but the vacant lot was not sold at that time. On April 13th, 2021, a report was brought to council to once again consider the disposal of this property. Council approved the disposal of the property by means of closed tender for an amount of no less than $59,600. This property was advertised for sale via closed tenders in the local newspapers, on the Leduc County website, and by posting for sale signage on the property for a period of 6 weeks. No tenders were received and the property was not sold. In February of 2023, another interested party approached Leduc County administration, inquiring about the possible purchase of the property. Leduc County received an official offer for the property for $45,000 plus GST. County policy CM07 outlines the disposal process for county-owned lands. Market value is defined as the amount that a property might be expected to realize if sold on the open market by a willing seller to a willing buyer after a reasonable amount of exposure time in the open market. This property has been advertised and marketed numerous times with no successful sale and clearly no willing purchaser for previously suggested minimum bids. Analysis of recent sales of comparable properties in New Sarepta would suggest that $45,000 plus GST is a reasonable offer and expression of current market value. According to CM07, council will approve the manner in which land will be disposed, example being a real estate listing, competitive bid, public auction, or a private party negotiated sale. Considering the numerous times Leduc County has endeavored to sell this property in various manners of real estate listing and competitive bid process with no successful sale, it is reasonable to accept a private party negotiated sale and have this parcel of land realize its highest and best use.
Thank you for that. Councillor Smith, I thought you might want.
I do. Again, just a little bit more history on it. And again, I have to commend council for their work on the disposal of this piece of land. But in 2014, we were approached for the sale of the village office and the land was attached as part of it. The buyer, which now has numerous buildings operating in the village office, didn't want the land and couldn't quite bring the sale in. So we have subdivided this piece of land, has sat over a period of time. And so now to dispose of it today, it's a very exciting development, which I can't really disclose today. I'll let the developer do it, but it is something that is going to be an asset to Division 1, the residents in the area, as well as the hamlet. So definitely a good news story for a piece of land that has been, we have tried to dispose of it numerous times. And when the developer is ready to disclose the usage, you will be pleasantly surprised of the value to the community.
Would you like to, that is in your area, would you like to make the motion?
Sure, I would recommend that council approve the disposal of Plan 578 CL Block 2, Lot 19, known as 5059 Center Avenue for the market value sum of $45,000 plus GST by means of private party negotiated sale. The proceeds of which shall be allocated to capital asset life cycle management, land management reserve.
Thank you very much. And I agree with you, Councillor Smith. The best way to build a community is to actually get in there and start building it. And this could be something that creates a viable commercial area for the residents, not only in New Sarepta, but the surrounding area. So looking forward to knowing what it is, and having a lot with nothing on it with no use isn't valuable to anyone in Leduc County. Any other comments, questions, or debate? Seeing none, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, 7B1. Ms. Klamosko, are you leading this one? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. We are here this afternoon, your senior management team, to present Q1 reporting for 2023. So the recommendation in front of you this afternoon is that Council accept the report and attachments as information. Part of the background to our quarterly reporting is we provide a quarterly update to Council and our public on our various projects and programs. This reporting demonstrates our commitment to achieving positive results and helps foster open, transparent communication. The reporting includes county highlights, status updates on strategic and operational initiatives, financial reports for departments and projects, and operating and capital reserve schedules. Going to the table of contents, similar to previous presentations that we've done on quarterly reporting, I will go through the reports in the order of the table of contents. And again, your senior management team is here to answer any questions that you might have on any topic for any programs or projects in Leduc County. So please.
If I may, Ms. Klamosko, is
Yes.
this the first time Council has a chance to look at this? We went through it at a workshop, correct?
This is quarterly reporting
Oh, we
Q1.
did that.
Yeah.
Q4.
Yeah, so we had done Q4 2022 was the last quarterly reporting we've done. This is our first reporting for 2023. So going in onto page 41 of your package, we have a county highlights document. So on that first page, we highlight various work done in different departments, some key deliverables within the time frame of January 1st to March 31st, 2023. So I will just highlight the first point on this county highlights document, which was we successfully executed the deliverables for the Prairies Economic Development Canada grant, and the deliverables included the following. We changed the use of the facility previously known as the Nisku Rec Center to Leduc County Business and Entrepreneur Center and completed facility renovations. We held the Leduc County Business Summit and grand opening in March 2023 for the Business Entrepreneur Center. We launched a new business-focused website, leduccountybusiness.com, and we also initiated new business support programs such as peer-to-peer mentorship and business visitation. So there are other highlights included on this report, but I just thought I would highlight that one.
Okay, any questions on the highlights page from Council? I have two, if I may. The first one amended the land use bylaw relating to rural wedding and agricultural events facilities on February 14th. I had a comment from a resident or a question from a resident saying, does that mean we're not going to allow any more rural wedding facilities? And my answer was no, it's just a different process. But if Mr. Bain can explain that change, please.
Madam Chair, effectively what the amendment does is it removes the use as a discretionary use from those two districts, the Ag District and the Ag Country Residential Transitional District. And there were 3 specific properties which have existing permitted uses in place that were indexed, which can continue to operate in accordance with permit renewal requirements. But there would be, the Development Authority would not have the ability to consider applications for new facilities without a further land use bylaw amendment, essentially.
So just a different process, but still allowable.
It could be considered by council by amendment. Yes.
Okay,
correct.
thank you. That's kind of what I thought. And my second question, if I may, the campground online reservation system, which I think we've been waiting for a while. I did hear from a couple of residents about there was an additional cost to that. Could you explain that, Mr. Honesty, please?
Yeah, thank you. We can follow up with that, but it's as set in our fees and charges bylaw. So there should be no additional costs other than what we previously have set into
That we've done with booking, right?
But if there's a specific scenario, we can have a look at that.
I will follow up with you offline. Thank you. Okay, moving on.
So moving on through the next page of the report, we have a graphic summary of revenues and expenditures on page 42. And then on page 43, we have a real estate market activity report that just highlights sales within vacant lot and improved lot sales in the first quarter of the year. Going into the next page, we just highlight various development projects that are ongoing in the county and indicate kind of the level of what is occurring in those developments at that time. Going on to page 45, we have a summary of the various permits that have been issued and their dollar value in Q1 of 2023. Going to the next section within the health and safety section, I just wanted to highlight, because this is a change from our 2022 reporting. We did update the definitions for safety reporting, so they're more clear, and we've broken it down into different categories. So I wanted to highlight this this piece so that we've really separated. There was some overlap between the definitions in 2022 around near misses and an incident. So we've clarified the definition so that we can break out that information more clearly. Going to the next page of county highlights document, we have received no complaints on our whistleblower complaint line. And then also we have an updated debt limit availability summary that just indicates the amount of debenture borrowing Leduc County could access if needed or required, which is $52 million, just over $52 million.
Ms. Klamosko, is that a reasonable, when you look at debt, are we in a good situation, a good position as a municipality?
Yes, the Municipal Government Act outlines a specific formula that municipalities have to adhere to that ensures that they are financially able to meet their debt obligations. So really what that formula tells us is, as a municipality, we would be able to actually borrow those two amounts. So right now we have that $37 million that we have borrowed, and the Municipal Government Act is allowing us to borrow, if needed, another 52 million, and we could meet that financial obligation. So we don't take that approach here. We don't plan to use up all the credit card right away. That we are very mindful around not tying future council or administration to opportunities where debenture borrowing is going to be needed. So we're very mindful to keep that at a reasonable balance.
Thank you. Councillor Scobie?
Yes, so once we actually borrow the funds, then we would apply it into this graph once the funds are borrowed. We do have adequate cash flow throughout this year to start the project without doing the borrowing in advance of starting the project. We've done the borrowing bylaw, which is a required step in the process to be able to borrow the funds later. But right now, because of our favorable cash position, we don't have to borrow until we actually do some of the work. So we would do that later this year. So then going to the next page, we have the next number of pages just speaks to the various actions that have been done for the 2022 to 2025 strategic plan. So within our strategic plan, council had highlighted some high priority strategies. So we've spoken about some actions to date on those high priority strategies. And then further into the next pages, the 3 pillars of deep community connections, a robust economy, and strong leadership. We have outlined the various work that has been done by administration to advance council's priorities.
Okay, any questions on any of those from the strategic plan?
All right, so going to the next report in the package is on page 50, and it's the corporate plan. So this is the work coming out of the county manager's office and encompasses some of the corporate projects that we want to complete in 2023 and provide some status updates. Are there any questions on the corporate plan?
Corporate plan questions.
So then we move into our departmental quarterly reports. So the first section is starting on page 58, which is assessment services, and then followed by their financial report for Q1.
I have just a question on assessment review board. I have been trained and am now able to sit on those and looking forward to it. How many files do we usually have come up in a calendar year, Ms. Bernand?
Since my time being here, there have been no official appeals.
Okay.
Last year, I received 12 appeals that we were able to find resolution on prior to going to the board.
Well, thank you very much for that. That must have been hard work, but we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions on assessment?
So the next reports are for corporate services on page 62. And then we have finance on page 71. Seeing no questions, I'll go to the next report is agricultural services on page 76.
Anything
All right.
for agricultural services? We did just approve weed and club root inspectors today. So that I guess leaves them fully staffed. Anything else on ag services?
No. So the next report in the package is enforcement services on page 85. And then we move into engineering on page 94.
Could I just go back to enforcement
Yes.
services? And I don't know if they're able to answer it, but how much time do we spend supporting something like the RCMP? And I'm only asking because the other day there was a truck whose load had shifted and it couldn't make the turn around the roundabout on Highway 39 and 60. And I know that it was our peace officers that were out there directing traffic. So do we spend like 20% of our time or 5%, Mr. Patterson or Officer Patterson?
Some years you could be down as low as 5%.
Okay.
And if they have a busy year and they're short staffed, then we could be called out, 10 or 15%.
Okay. So it just depends on what's happening. Councillor Smith?
We had a chance to meet with Minister Wilson from the provincial government recently, and there was a suggestion of a review of our enforcement services and level of policing, a grant that's available from the provincial government. Just wondering if that's something that we would be considering or adding going forward.
Mr. Coleman?
Madam Chair, members of council, that's something we're looking at. We're looking into the criteria of the grant and what potentially might be even partnerships with others in the region. It's not something we would likely end up going alone on. So we'll be talking to our partners in the sub-region.
Councillor Lewis?
Thank you. You had your urban standards bylaw was passed out, and then you had an educational mail out. Have you had any calls or any enforcement concerns or issues that you've had to deal with since that was put out?
Not to my knowledge. I will talk with the director and get the information back to you guys.
Okay, that'd be interesting. Yeah, good question. Thank you. Yep, Councillor Smith?
Just adding to that, through the chair, perhaps I can offer, again, part of the urban standards bylaw is NUSREPTA, and I have received probably several calls for clarification on why we included some things and not other, but I think if they haven't contacted enforcement services, perhaps the questions were answered satisfactorily.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Officer Patterson?
So the next department report is engineering on page 94.
Questions for engineering? And we did just have a public works meeting yesterday, so probably answered some of the questions that we might have had. Go ahead.
Perhaps Director Meriglod could just talk about the 510 and the detour that will be coming up for residents that might be listening.
Yes.
I don't have any specific details about the timing of the detour, but this has been released to the residents. We did have a open house at the local, what's known as the Wi-Fi park, to try to capture as many people as possible and let them know of the disruptions that they can expect, as well as there are signs posted on the route informing the individuals who do use that, because it's not necessarily just county residents. There's other folks who use Township Road 510 as a major commuter route. So we're trying to spread as far wide as net as possible to let people know, work with people in the area that might be affected to try to come to some type of arrangement, but at the very least, make sure that they have as much warning as possible prior to the event actually occurring.
Councillor Smith?
Just a question again. I see that public transportation has been added into this area, and one of your action plans was implement a new transit service for Leduc County. With the dissolution of the Edmonton Metro Transit Service, we were out early as it didn't look like a good fit for Leduc County. Can you confirm that there is some discussions with adding some municipalities, increasing services for transit offered in our area?
Absolutely. So right now, as everybody's aware, that we have a joint venture agreement with the city of Leduc, and it's an excellent agreement that honestly a lot of other municipalities look at as being a standard to emulate. With that, we are also looking at bringing in some other municipal partners. We have been approached by the city of Beaumont, and we have given a preliminary proposal for them for consideration. Right after that, we will be discussing a request from the town of Devon for a very similar level of service. So we are working with the individuals in our sub-region to build on the successes that we've already had and expand it.
Just to follow through again, getting out of the Metro Transit Service was a good deal and showing regional leadership. So I want to commend you for continuing to show that regional leadership in our area by looking at other municipalities and increasing, I guess, availability of transit, not only to our businesses, but to our residents. Thank you.
Any further questions for engineering? I'm seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Ridlod.
So the next report in the package is Family and Community Support Services on page 101.
I have a general question for Mr. Honesty, if I may. Myself and Councillor Scobie sit at the Leduc Regional Housing Foundation, and the conversation there, lots of conversation around the increased need for affordable housing in the region. How is your staff responding to those changes? I think the economic conditions and what they're doing for people's be able to find affordable housing.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's one of our biggest struggles right now, because there isn't availability and there isn't, regardless of the condition or the need for housing, there's various different levels, but the availability is the biggest issue. So several clients we work with right now are considered homeless. Either they're living with with friends or family, or we have several that we work with that are living in various situations because there just isn't anything available to send them to or refer them to, or if we do, they're on a wait list.
Okay.
So it's one of the biggest challenges we face right now, because you always want to find a solution, but there just isn't a solution. So it's finding the best option to be safe is kind of where we're working with right now.
I know Councillor Smith wants to jump in as well, but does it help? I know we changed some zoning, and I believe it was in the Vistas to allow for secondary suites. Does that kind of action by a municipality to allow homeowners to then have a secondary suite, is that helpful? Would that be helpful if we did that across the region and, had those discussions with Kalmar and Thorsby and the other smaller municipalities?
Yeah, it's extremely difficult to measure and calculate that.
Thank you.
It's about affordability, right? How much do they earn in a month, and how much of that can be towards any type of housing? And often what we find is the income is just not enough to pay for almost any sort of accommodations. So that's really where the struggle is.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Smith?
Based on discussions that I had with you, Madam Mayor, about future directions and where we're going with housing, you made a suggestion that perhaps something go into workshop. So in transparency, I have approached Dwayne, our CAO, and Dean to just have an informal conversation and perhaps look at something that could come to a workshop for council to maybe look at some of the direction going forward. So based on your advice yesterday, I'm going to try to just have some consultation and see where that goes. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions on FCSS? Yep. Come back, Mr. Honestly. Good try, though.
Just a comment. I believe there's something coming forward to council in June of some regional senior transportation or management. Can you make a comment or clarification on that?
Yeah, just actually in your package, it's listed as today, but that was removed from the agenda. So we're working with our executive leadership to find the next process, but we do have a program in place ready to go and identified. So our hope is to pilot a assisted transportation program for seniors this fall. So we're starting the process and meeting with residents, volunteers, and creating our partnerships as we speak.
Thank you.
The next department report is for fire services on page 108.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Your goal 3 talks about a new fire agreement being in place with the Village of Warburg. Is that just what the deliverable is? Because I don't recall that we've actually put that new agreement in place.
Yeah, that's correct. The deliverable would be that there is a new agreement would be in place by that time. I believe negotiations are still ongoing at this point.
One of the areas, and I'm looking at goal 3, which talks about sub-regional emergency management. One of the pieces that we hear a lot about at the regional table at the Edmonton Metropolitan Region Board is this need to try and get protective services together as a region. We believe that already exists. We believe that there are perhaps not formally written, but there is an agreement amongst municipalities about how to work together. Can you tell us a little bit about how, especially how that's worked in the last 3 or 4 weeks?
Yeah, so this is more at the emergency management level, but specifically in relation to fire services, we have CREP agreements, which is a capital regional group of emergency partners that sign an agreement on every 10-year basis to ensure that we have those resources available if we need them in the event of a large scale event. So similar to what we've been experiencing in the past week, we've reached out and we've been reached out by some of our neighboring counties like Strathcona County, Brazeau County. We did have our crews from Breton out of Brazeau County on our initial fire last week, and then we assisted Strathcona under those agreements later in the week. So we do work very well, and we're always working and prepared to work together regardless of what piece of paper is there to make sure that we protect the citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman? Your microphone's not on.
Sorry, another example is a couple years ago, St. Albert had a major fire and Edmonton responded. I believe Parker Island responded. So these relationships have been going on for years and years and years, and it really is seamless. The on the ground folks know how to work together very well. We use similar protocols and training methods. And so there really isn't a need at the EMRB level for any sort of intervention to make things better. I would suggest they would make it worse, to be honest.
Yes, I would agree. Generally, grassroots is better than top down for most developments like this. Councillor Belazo.
Yeah, in light of the recent fires out in the Warburg and close to my area, I know two gentlemen out there that used to be on the Warburg Fire Department, but no longer are. They were available and around, but they haven't got the updated training. And basically probably were not allowed to go and fight the fires. Would there be an exception for people like that have some training, but not all the courses?
Well, you may have seen Parkland put out a request for help from available resources. I don't think we're quite at that point. We did have the help of our coworkers in ag and road operations and whatnot. So we did utilize some additional resources, but we try and make sure that what we are bringing in have the training and understanding to make sure that they're safe to perform those duties. Understanding that there are some residents that have done it in the past, but we want to make sure that they're current and able to operate safely and effectively.
And so, DC Bennett, at the beginning of the meeting, I started with a thank you to fire services on behalf of council and all of our residents for your courage, strength, resilience as you work to protect our home and property here in the county. And hoping that the cool weather continues and the rain to help mitigate, but reminding everyone to be careful with fire of any kind, because everybody has a responsibility to protect not only their own homes and their neighbors, but the safety of our firefighters as well. So thank you from all of us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you to all the other county departments that assisted us last week.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Again, I know Noosa Repta Fire responded to Highway 14 and 21. And I just wanted to commend our chief. Yeah, there were boots on the ground and he took command of some trucks in an area as well. So it was something right from the very top to the bottom had gone over. And again, really close to home, that fire, and it closed down the two major highways. But driving through, job well done. And again, just Noosa Repta went over Strathcona and they worked together, as you say, without an agreement, but with safety in mind. And when you drive through and see all the structures that were saved and how close it was to all the residents, I echo the mayor's kudos to everybody.
So the next report in the package is for legislative on page 115. Then moving on to Parks and Recreation on 116.
I have a question on goal 2, strategy 2.1, and it's actually the Yardley Jones Park in Noosa Repta. I had the opportunity to be out there with the head of our housing organization at a farmer's market, and the train went by and it was very scary. Is part of our plan to put a fence up or something there or not?
There is currently a fence there.
Maybe I was in a different area because it was a very fast train. And
yeah, as you leave the park and you go into the other part of county operations, that the old building, maybe there's so it's something we could review and look at. The park itself does have a fence.
Okay, good.
And then our hope with that vision is to create it as a more suitable park for things like the farmer's market, because I think it's a good option. Absolutely. We just have to create a different environment where it can be
okay,
utilized. So
okay, I might have been farther down then. It was
correct. I believe so.
Yes, thank you. And it's not your responsibility then to build that fence. Thank you. Any other questions for Parks and Rec?
The next report in the package is Planning and Development on page 123. Moving to Public Transit on page 132. next week.
Could I go
Yes.
back to just planning and development?
Mhm.
Question for Mr. Bain. We no longer provide building permits for YAG, but we do inspection at the airport.
Madam Chair, we no longer provide development approval,
Okay,
but
approval.
we still provide full safety code services,
Okay.
including permitting and inspection.
And so with that and the growth that we see in NISCU, we're able to manage that with the staff we have in a timely manner because we do pride ourselves in being nimble.
100%.
Thank you very much for that.
So the next report is public transit on page 132. Followed by road operations on page 134.
Just a question for Mr. Broadbent, if I could. How has the extremely dry spring impacted your operations? And again, I know we've had numerous complaints about dust. I mean, generally, we're dealing with frost boils and we're dealing with dust generally. How have you managed to adjust some of your operations because the weather, I mean, we just didn't have the kind of spring we typically do.
Yeah, so there was a period of time there where we had to cautiously blade some of our areas, like for our gravel road. It's where we would work out, the washboarded intersections, but not overblade the entire road. And because we're stirring up more dust and just creating more loose float and doing more, creating an unnecessary dusty condition. There were a couple cases where we did have complaints where we had worked it up, right, in anticipation for dust suppression program or dust control program. Program will be starting early this year. Road bans, if all holds as it is, road bans will be coming off on Monday. And then and we were going to start designated dust suppression actually this morning, but with this bit of rain. So we're 3 weeks ahead of schedule than we were before.
I
So
would think that's the shortest road ban time, at least in my 10 years here.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah,
short.
we started to see a few soft spots show up right as the frost came out, but they've tightened up in the last 5 days. So we're going to watch what we get in the next couple of days, but most likely Monday will be road bans coming off.
And again, we're dependent on when our contractor can come and be available as well. It's
Yeah.
not that we
Yeah.
can start it on any day.
No, for
There-
dust
there is some
suppression.
time.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Verdi and then Councillor Scobie.
Sorry, just a quick question on public transit, if I may. Is that okay? Or-
You bet. Let's bring back Mr. Meriglod.
So after our in-depth discussion around transit, I was just wondering to bring seniors into some medical hubs from the smaller communities around Leduc County, would it make more sense to subsidize, a health professional going from these hubs to the smaller communities? Logistically, I just figured it would be a lot easier, say a RN or a doctor to go to a facility there, meet with the folks versus the other way around, which I think would be harder.
That's something that honestly would probably be outside of scope of the rural transit study that we have looked at, but it's something that might be better answered by the FCSS folks who are looking after that subsidized transit program for seniors for medical appointments.
Yeah, thank you. We've looked at that approach. Obviously, the council supports the primary care network and the nurse practitioner in Warburg and Thorsby. So that theory is something we've applied. In the case that we're trying to address is there's often seniors who don't have any means to transportation. So even from their direct house, and obviously that would relate to various medical appointments with various doctors or their own doctors. So to us, the best approach would be to assist them as we can to come in and get that medical within an urban area.
Thank you. Councillor Scobie.
Okay, this would be for Mr. Broadbent then, I guess. On the graveling, I noticed in your variances, the comments, the cash flow graveling, the more annual budget should have been allocated Q1 rather than Q4. That we were kind of looking at, we kind of needed more Q4 than Q1 as we've had lots of time in the fall and run out of gravel. So this just, what are we really looking at here?
Yeah, so So what we are doing, so we will start graveling going forward earlier than we have traditionally done. So this last year we ran in November, but the 2022 budget essentially ran out of money because of our financial calendar year. So this year we have cash flowed graveling for November and December 2023, and then into the 2024 budget, if that makes sense, because our budget calendar year is December 31st, but the program runs November, December, and whatever we need in January, February, March to finish it off.
Okay, so that is pulling more money into November.
Yes, yes.
I didn't see that in the way this was stated here. So perfect.
It will reconcile itself at the end, at the end of the year. It does, but it's, yeah, I understand.
Okay.
So then the next group of reports is for utilities. So we have reports on water distribution, wastewater collection, and waste management.
Questions on those?
And then the next reports are considered others. So there's fiscal services and requisition expenditures. There's no questions there. We'll move right into the major and capital project plans on page 153. So this is a summary page that just indicates the projects that have been completed within Q1 and then what remains work in progress for those two plans. So then moving to the next page in the package, we have two pages, I guess. We have the summary strictly for the major project plan. So again, it just indicates what's been completed, what is work in progress, and the various funding sources utilized for that plan. Now we go on page 157. We have all of the project details. We have the project names, and we also have a status update. So any questions on this report?
Councillor Smith.
Sorry, I did have a question on waste management. If we could go back, I see that we had residential landfill charges and building debris costs were less than anticipated, likely due to the tonnage cap implemented in 2022. Could we get a comment on the savings? Possible?
Absolutely. So with the tonnage cap that was implemented by administration and as part of the strategic waste management plan that we worked through with council, we have seen a saving last year of about projected saving saving so far about $190,000. So it's a pretty significant figure. It's about 2/3 reduction of what we typically see in requisitions from the landfill.
And that is part of your waste management plan that was discussed with council and implemented going forward? Okay, thank you for that.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. So moving back to page 157 of the package, we have the detailed listing of the major project plan. Are there any questions on any projects?
I guess it's not, I guess it is a question, but a bit of a comment. Land use bylaw update, again, continuing to get numerous questions about that, linked to other information from other municipalities. But we are doing this, firstly, we're doing it internally with our own staff. Number two, council is kept updated on every part of it. And number three, once we get into public engagement, we will use everything, including road signs, to let people know when they can be part of the process. Is that correct?
Yep, Madam Chair, that's correct. And I think I would also add a council that is very diligent about making sure documents that they approve are their documents, that you're fully aware that when you make your decisions, you've been fully briefed and knowledgeable. Unfortunately, many municipalities in this province hire consultants and the reports come to council. They aren't scanned or reviewed by administrations in any great detail. Councils, unfortunately, blindly adopt these things. This is a municipality that has a strong history of understanding its documents, that this is the work that council supports and endorses and represents the citizens of this municipality in a very fair and meaningful way.
Thank you. Mr. Bain?
Madam Chair, just directly to your question, we're actually having a group meeting tomorrow to discuss the details of the public engagement strategy moving forward. So we have a public engagement strategy in place, but we want to talk through the details of timing of when the open houses will be scheduled and the methods that we'll use to communicate out to the public, and it will definitely be robust. And we'll have a particular eye toward getting the right information out so that we're talking about what our process is, but also what it isn't.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you to administration. I know that our council is very diligent about ensuring not only do we understand what's in the documents, but that we believe it's for the best in the county, and have sent things back many, many times until it actually is satisfactory to us. And certainly when I talk to residents, I say we are a very diligent council, and they need to put their trust in their elected officials, which I know for some people is difficult right now. Thank you.
Thanks.
So moving to the capital project plan on page 159. Again, we have the summary that outlines the completed projects, the work in progress, and the various funding sources for this plan. And then we move into the detail to projects on the next page. Are there any questions? I will go to a summary that lists road projects and bridge projects more specifically, but are there any questions on any other projects other than bridges and roads?
Our graders, are they pushed back again to Q4 2024, or is that, I'm getting a nod, they've been pushed back again?
Yes, they have.
I guess we better start building the ones for 2027 now. Otherwise we won't find them. Okay, and then to Mr. Broadbent, are we able to manage with what we have with good maintenance and crossed fingers?
So our 2022 purchases have yet to arrive. Which we're fortunate that one of the providers has given us a loaner to use and without rent. So we're going to hour that machine out, and we've put 2 engines in 2 other ones. So we are doing okay. Bear in mind, like I said, and Mr. Coleman has some information about the cost of motor graders. Sometimes, like, we have a level of service that we need to maintain to ensure that road is safe. But blading a road just to blade a road and run a grader up is unnecessary. So we're starting to really track hours, idling time, what we're blading, why we're blading it, because of the cost of this service.
Thank you. And we know that you either grade too much or too little on the same road. Yes. Okay. Thank you for that.
And the other comment I would add is we do have a fleet management group that I think, given these delays that we're seeing in a delivery of certain equipment, we will have to perhaps change our approach to looking at when we put things into the budget for replacement, and we might have to proactively be putting things in advance for expecting it in a year and a half's time, but actually being able to put the order in, because typically we were able to order in January and get the equipment in the same fiscal year, but that is not happening right now. So we need to start looking at things a bit differently. Yeah.
Councillor Scobie.
So just a comment on that. So our grader is gone that we've traded in then?
The two that I refuse putting any more money into are at Ritchie Brothers. Are at Ritchie Brothers to be sold.
Okay.
Your microphone.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, 2 are gone and they've given us.
So the 2, yeah.
So while we.
Yes. The 2 that were intended to be replaced for 2022's purchase.
Right.
They are gone because it financially didn't make sense to invest more money in those, and I'd sooner they be down the road. And because of the delay in delivery, they gave us a loaner to get by.
Okay, because I guess so that we sent them to Ritchie's. They're not going to the dealer.
Oh no,
as trade-ins.
No.
We're just sending them to Ritchie's.
For sure. Yeah, the price we're getting on used equipment, even if it has 13,500 hours and multiple sensors on, is more than what we'd get via trade-in. For a return agreement with contract.
Okay, it's just a weird kind of world right now.
It is.
Mr. Broadbent, if I may, if you can indulge me, I want to just ask about it's kind of a road operation / agricultural question, and I apologize to council. I had a request from a number of residents on Glen Park Road west of 795 for a blue agricultural slow moving vehicle sign that we have just coming off of Highway 2 on Glen Park Road. They continue to get verbal and gestural abuse from people who don't believe that tractors and things belong on that road. So I don't know how long they take to order or if we have any, but it was a request, so I thought it would make it
West to 795.
west.
On Park Road,
Yes.
west to 795.
We have a number of large farmers, Murphy and a number, Miller still works, yeah, that
Yeah.
find it to be very, very discouraging.
We're looking at other signage related options, right? Because those signs were outstanding and they've served their purpose and they've been there for a long time. What we are finding is that regardless of signage, and many municipalities are experiencing this, regardless of signage on some of our local roads, whatever you want to consider that, Glen Park Road, regardless of signage, it doesn't control the behavior of the drivers. And it takes that one or two drivers when you are moving a cultivator or a seed drill to really escalate up what's going on. So I don't know if a sign.
Okay, so
does
you're
it,
working
right?
on something
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
Okay,
we're looking
perfect.
at-
And that's what I will let my residents know.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you to council for allowing me to ask that.
So the next report on page 162 is the road program detail.
Can I just, one more question on, and well, it's not a question, it's a kudo. We had an opportunity to meet with one of our other municipalities, and we were talking about our Nisku South Fire Station at the airport, and said we were going to break ground in May and be operational by December. And they could not believe that we would be able to do that. So yeah, come forward, BC Bennett. And we know from working with this builder how proud we are. And if it's not December, even if it's January, it is they are very efficient.
Yes, we are working with them very well. I think our relationship that we've built with them has helped that. There's a lot of things that we say, no, do it the same as we did in those buildings. So it just, that process gets sped up quite a bit. We have run into some snags dealing with some things through this project, but we're hopeful. We're still on target for early move in by 3 days before Christmas. So it's going to be an interesting December. But what I keep telling them, as long as I can park a fire truck in there and the guys can sleep in there January 1, then we're in good shape.
That's pretty exciting. And again, thank you for your oversight and your work with the builder and the relationships we built. It's just a great story for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
now, Ms. Claus.
Thank you. So we have page 162. We have the detailed road program. If there's any questions on any of the projects.
Question? Councilor Balazer?
Yeah, just down at the Summer Village to Mr. Broadbent, any idea when those are gonna start down at Sundance or I guess to Mr. Marigold?
Yeah.
I have no questions on them, but sooner or later I'm going to have.
Yes, absolutely. So my understanding is that they are starting late July, early August. It's not going to be a long project, so they'll be able to get those done fairly quickly.
Very good, thanks. It's just an answer I'll need.
So the next schedule is for the bridge program. Are there any questions on the bridge program? Seeing none, then the final two schedules in the package are the operating reserve schedule and the capital reserve schedule. So we have our operating reserve schedule. Again, this is just bringing in transactions that occurred within Q1. So at the end of March 31st, 2023, we have just under $27 million within our operating fund reserve. And then we have just over 22 million within our capital reserve fund.
Questions on that? Reserves?
So that concludes the presentation on the quarterly reporting. So there is a recommendation for council's consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Looking for someone to make a motion to accept for information. Councillor Belazer. That council accept the report and attachments as information. Yeah, it's a long scroll back. And just again, on behalf of council, thank you very much for your work in that. It really does keep us informed, which is important. We find that residents are asking more questions and are wanting to know more about what's happening in the county. Having this being public and having the opportunity to ask questions makes us more prepared to be able to support our residents. Yeah.
So one thing I would just highlight is that the information can be found on the website within our documents listing. So if you go to that page, you can scroll to the bottom. It says quarterly reporting. So we have every quarterly reporting listed, easily accessed in the website. So you don't have to go within the agenda package to find it. You can actually just go on to the documents listing on the website.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? It is unanimous. Okay, so thank you. And just before we adjourn today, a reminder to be fire safe. Take care of yourself and your neighbors, and keep an eye out for anything that's happening out there, and call 911 if you do see something. Mr. Coleman.
Just Madam Chair, for Councillor Blaser, under the Forest and Prairie Protection Act, you can be conscripted to fight a fire. So get in shape, stay alert, and be ready.
Thank you for that.
Okay, with that happy comment, we will adjourn at 2:46. Thank you. Good luck.